Hello Exiles, it's KD here. As perhaps many of you, I have started to deep into Path of Exile recently and have been enjoying the game. Given I'm a complete beginner, I had to go through certain things that were confusing or not very well explained and straightforward. I thought, since I've done the job already, I can safely share with you main tips on how to start playing Path of Exile right now and not to get completely lost in all the complexity. This will cover you from complete zero to the end of the campaign in Act 10, which is a sufficient start to see if you like the game and want to learn more about it, as I do believe that you don't have to know everything in order to have positive experience in the game. All information will be in the description with all the links, plus a Google spreadsheet with the same. Alright, let's get into it. So first you need to get the game. It is free to play and there are pretty much two options, Steam or standalone install from Path of Exile website. I recommend Steam and it will also allow you to create an account right away with your Steam one. Yes, you need a build guide for your character, and a good one. You can try freestyling, but be ready to hit a wall after 30 to 50 hours and start from scratch with a guide or deeper research on what was wrong in yours. Main problem is that there are tons of bad guides or builds that are not friendly for new players. I would recommend to look for good streamers with SSF friendly builds, meaning they are good with basic gear and do not require extensive trading, as this means you need to learn, well, trading in order to get good. And I would rather remove additional thing to learn for the first time playing. I followed a few build guides from, for example, Zizaran, and they were very newbie friendly with multiple progress stages explained. And for example, I played Toxic Rain Pathfinder that had everything explained at different stages of the campaign progression. In general, these builds seem to be very friendly for new players. Toxic Rain Pathfinder, Righteous Fire Juggernaut, Bone Shatter Juggernaut or Slayer, Cold Dot Elementalist. As you don't have many things to judge upon, just check how build plays in maps, take it if you like what you see. And then, in order to make the best out of your build, use Path of Building. This is the most important tool to be able to follow key pieces of your chosen build at different stages of the game. This is also how you can see a beginner-friendly build guide. It has multiple progression steps for you to follow and not only level 95 endgame setup. Path of Building allows you to follow critical parts of the build, passive skill tree, skill gems, and items. Additionally, there are often notes from the creator of a build that will explain a few extra things. Download Path of Building, install it, import the build with a pobb link, and here is a quick overview of the interface and how to navigate it. Next most important thing before starting to play is to get a leveling guide set and ready. It is the same for any build. It is a guidance on how to beat the campaign most efficiently, where to go, when to buy what gems according to your build, and where to get crafting recipes, and so on. It could be a little overwhelming to go through the campaign if you don't listen to every dialogue or don't pay much attention, which honestly I would highly recommend to do, actually, as it is quite interesting, especially for the first time. My favorite tool for this is here. It not only lists all the directions and checklists, all the steps, but also can be connected with your Path of Building build and will tell you when to buy the gems, and can show you the passive skill tree for the stage. Lastly, to the loot filter. This one is rather simple. Go to the Filter Blade website, get the basic filter for the current league and sync it with your PoE account. After that, it will be available in the game settings. Alright, we are ready to start with the game. Now onto the in-game settings. So here are quite a few things that you want to adjust in your basically options and settings. Let's check it out really quick. Graphics, of course, according to your machine you can adjust things, but most important in game, this is where you can choose your filter blade, and you have seen we created this one just a moment ago. It's already here. If everything is alright, if it does not appear, you have to restart the game. Then next in the UI there are quite a few important things. Of course, enable quest tracking to make it a little bit easier, and for the map, maybe by default your maps looks like this and it's not really good, so switch the transparency of the landscape, add the map transparency on top, maybe somewhere in the middle, and you can also choose the zoom level. I prefer a bit zoomed out because otherwise I don't see anything. In the items, the important thing is also to always show sockets, otherwise it's gonna be annoying to review them. choose the style you want. And typically full description is also quite helpful when you hover over on the ground. In the gameplay, absolutely, life mana levels of course, flask buffs, our aura icons, and mini life bar on enemies and above you. Here in the town you don't see it, but you will have it just right on top of you. That will be very helpful to also not to look to the left or right to see how much life you have left. In the input, here I would just recommend to go through all the controls in the beginning just to understand how it all works, otherwise you can get confused a little bit. One thing that took me a while to find is actually the toggle highlighting, so basically constantly seeing the loot on the ground, which is Z. Okay, so now the most important thing about the skills, as you can see, by the way, that I have my life and mana levels right on top of me. Whenever you have a skill, if you click on it, left mouse, choose for all the attacking skills, always attack without moving, because then otherwise you will not be able to actually perform attacks until you are in the correct range, which is not good. If I click this one, could click over here and it will attack right there, so this is super important. Second one is that by default, normally you should put move only and not any skill, but I do have this specific skill, steel skin, that just activates, but most important, do not have any attacking skill here, otherwise you will just swing at monsters instead of running through them, and that can cause you life, because in this game you have to run around monsters and especially bosses quite a lot like this in order not to get killed. Now if we look at the items, when you hover over them you see some information. If you press Alt, you actually see the names of the prefixes and suffixes and also their range. You can see the tier, and you can see that, for example, reduced enemy stun threshold rolls from 5 to 7%, and I actually rolled 7. And this is suffix of the pugilist, and it's a tier 5. So this is something that will give you a lot more information, and I find it quite helpful. And then lastly, just another tip in the stash. For example, if you want to put some currencies in, you can hold Control and left click and it will go into the stash tab. I do have already those premium tabs, and there is an affinity that it says currency, so if I click from anywhere, let's say again over here, and I press left click on the orb of augmentation, it goes directly in here in the currency tab. You could also make it with your basic tabs. Here you can choose affinities, so that will make it a little bit easier. Before you want to buy, let's say, any stash tabs, you can choose some of the things to make it easier to control where everything goes. If you hold shift, then you can put items like this, you can split them. This is also useful, especially for the scrolls of wisdom. I think this is the most important tip in the beginning, to identify multiple items at the same time. By holding shift you can then quickly click through them and it will be fine. Now let's talk the main things you will encounter during your playthrough. Generally, PvE has a lot of gear possibilities, and typically rare items are the best, with few exceptions that we don't need to worry about. You can vendor items, create new ones with your currency orbs, or craft additional affixes with the crafting bench, or just be lucky and find some. For the campaign, your priorities in choosing gear would be sockets color for your skill gems, links between them for the support gems, resistances to reach the cap at 75%, but remember, there are penalties at Act 6 and after Act 10, plus additional life, movement speed on boots, and that's pretty much it. If you play a melee character, damage on weapons is also very important, but it needs to be relevant to your build, for example, Bone Shatter Juggernaut. This will be enough of a campaign playthrough in first maps. Flasks are also at most important. Early on, try to upgrade your life and mana flasks, and remember, they can also be rolled with your currency orbs to find good affixes. Instant recovery, immunity to freeze and bleeding are typically the most sought after early on. Quicksilver flasks are nice for run speed, and you should definitely have at least one on the start. Later on, jade, quartz and granite are becoming very much needed. I already mentioned crafting, so there is crafting bench. This is another option to enhance your gear and cover for missing stats. Available after Hideout unlock in Act 2. You will find recipes along the way and see leveling guide for locations. If nothing else, these are the main recipes to use for starters. Resistances and suffixes, sockets color and links. Crafting items is one of the biggest endgame mechanics for gearing up, so it can get very complicated. but for now we keep it simple. And before we go to the leaks content, if you liked this video so far, consider subscribing and giving it a thumbs up. Thank you. Leagues. There are roughly 20 separate league mechanics. Yes. And learning them all at once is an overwhelming endeavor. I would rather recommend having a taste of some and deciding on one or two to actually try to learn more. There are a few that you will encounter early on, and most of them start appearing at the end of the campaign or in maps. New league content is in every location pretty much. You don't have to do it right away. Generally do the main league content, but it can be challenging to learn without many materials available yet. Just have fun and explore on your own. Essences and strongboxes will be absolutely present along your playthrough. They are quick and easy content unless you get frozen and wrecked, so be careful. Einhar and Bestiary, these ones you can try but not necessarily, and generally capturing some beasts, and then if you have enough for the specific recipe, you can go and try obtain the reward. Delve comes next in Act 4, and relatively simple to begin with. Don't dig too deep though, and you will find sulfite later in maps way more than in the campaign, so it is also rather for the end of campaign activity. From Act 6, more leagues content will start appearing. Some can be very difficult to understand, for example Betrayal, Harvest or Heist, and some are easier to start with, Expedition, Blight, Delirium. So try it out and choose what's more interesting or easier to understand and stick to that. Next, a lot of endgame content starts with mapping, with Atlas and all the other additional things, but this is not for the today video. Okay, I'm on a journey with you and will share some more tips and beginners info as soon as I understand enough. Share your best beginners tips in the comments if you have some and enjoy the league start. Thank you for watching, bye!